Hey everybody, today we're going to be looking at the effects of the Civil War. So, one of the effects was the creation of a unified country. The United States came back together again, the seceding states were brought back into the Union, and this issue of was the federal government more powerful or the states government more powerful, that issue was resolved. Resolved because the North won. And the North's ideology won out of the federal government being more powerful. And that's why today we say the United States is versus the United States are, because the Norse ideology won out. We still have some, I say resolved, because we still have some debate over that today as well. But for the most part, the federal government being more powerful was resolved. Then there was the abolition of slavery. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery. We're going to talk more later on in this unit about sharecropping and Jim Crow laws and the 14th and 15th Amendment. But for now, you need to know that slavery was abolished because of the Civil War through the 13th Amendment. Then there's the increased power of the federal government. This is a big one because one could argue that the federal government increased in power more than in any other time period in our history because of the Civil War. So conscription happened, which is the draft. The United States forced men to fight for their country, and that's the conscription. That had never been done before. There was the first income tax that forced people to give up some of their money to as a tax to that they earned as a tax to pay for the war. And the Freedmen's Bureau was created. That helped poor blacks, poor whites, and poor blacks and freed blacks in the South. It helped them find jobs, find homes, find education. It set up schools. And so, for the first time, the federal government is worried about and caring about people's everyday lives, their education and their health and their food. This is the first time for that. So, that's a huge expansion of the federal government. There's also a national currency where the United States had one currency for every state, whereas before it was just each state had their own currency. Death, of course, was a big effect. There were 620,000 deaths as a result of the Civil War. Some historians put it higher than that. But this is 2% of the population. 2% of the population in today's terms is 6 million people. Imagine 6 million men dying in a course of 4 years today. That's a huge deal. It drastically reduces the male population, which in turn reduces the population as a whole because women have fewer options to marry for men, fewer male options to marry. There are fewer babies being born as a result of this. There were over 1 million casualties. Casualties includes death and wounded. Then there's also the destruction. Most of the battles were fought on Southern soil. All but 2 major battles were fought in the South. And so when there's battles happening, it's just going to destroy the land. Then there's also General Sherman, who was a Union general who went through the South, destroying everything in his path, burning down buildings and burning through fields and destroying livestock and tearing up railroads. And he just destroyed everything in his path. And so this had to be fixed. This is a part of what's going to come next that we'll talk about in Reconstruction, of physically reconstructing the South, and then emotionally and mentally putting the country back together, reconstructing the country as a whole. So those are the effects of the Civil War. I know I went really fast, but those are the effects of the war. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.